across the world, real estate agents are underachieving. They're missing out on millions of dollars in commissions. My name is Pat Hiban, and in the past 27 years, I've sold over 6,000 homes, selling over $1 billion in real estate volume. My plan is to interview agents from across the world and help all agents create their destiny. You want to hang out with high-minded business people whose sole goals are, number one, to create more passive income through real estate, and number two, build bucket list adventures together that they'll remember for a lifetime. If so, go to GoBundance.com. That's G-O-B-U-N dance.com. Okay, good stuff here. Today I have Tim Harris from Tim and Julie Harris with Harris Real Estate University. Go to harrisrealestateuniversity.com and check out their website. Also, they have realestatecoachingradio.com, which is a radio show that's on every day, which is awesome. These guys started out long ago. They became Rookies of the Year the first year by the National Association of Realtors for selling over 100 homes. Right off the starting gate, they sold over 100 homes. They've been coaches for Howard Britton, Mike Ferry, some of the biggest names in real estate. Now, after 20 years, they have their own coaching company that is helping thousands of agents around the world. Welcome, Tim Harris.
Oh, thank you, Pat. That was an interesting introduction. You got it probably 90% right, but that's all right.
That's good. That's good.
Good enough, right?
Let's get right. What I love about you, Tim, is you're not afraid to talk about things that are contrarian or contradicting to what a lot of people will say. And a lot of the top agents I interview have big teams. They're famous, let's say, quote unquote, because of the large amount of volumes they've done. But you've been outspoken in the theme of you shouldn't have a big team and that you're much more profitable as a single agent. So let's address that. Just give me your honest, candid thoughts on this subject.
Do you know who Ludacris is, Pat?
Yes.
The rap guy, Ludacris? Okay. So Ludacris came out the other day and said he's having financial issues because of the fact that Paul Walker tragically passed away late last year. So Ludacris, who's famous, Ludacris, who, has, I'm sure, had lots of opportunity to earn tens of millions of dollars, let alone save tens of millions of dollars, because of the new movie being delayed, he literally now is having financial problems, and his total income last year, based on public filings, was less than $100,000.
Jeez.
So why am I telling you that? No, I don't spend all my time on TMZ. I'm telling you that because it is proof that being famous does not, and by the way, rarely even comes close to being rich. Just because people know who you are, just because you're famous, doesn't mean you have any money. And all too often, I think, Pat, truthfully, agents get into this business with good intentions, what they want to do with their real estate licenses. And then they get, I don't know what you want to call it, lulled into believing that having big teams and having all these minions running around and at your every beck and call, going to events where you sit on stage and the speaker asks, about your real estate volume and you make up some huge number, which you probably, hopefully, mostly are telling me the truth about. And then you talk about all these huge, Pat, you and I have been in that world forever. Back when we were at Howard's and, people would talk about, I sold $60 trillion of real estate. Yeah, really? Let's talk about that. Let's break those numbers down and see how accurate that actually is. The point is very, very, very rarely is a team as profitable in terms of profit that an agent puts in their pocket that then, say, for example, an agent with maybe two assistants. An agent that basically is focusing on listings as their primary source of income and not all this other team fluffiness and trying to remember all these acronyms that very rarely equal profit. So Pat, I have a fun question if you don't mind me asking. I'm sorry if I'm going into coaching mode. This is a good question.
Ask away. No, please
do.
So
this is a question that I like to ask agents, and I think this is really telling. We ask this publicly. We ask this on coaching calls, just every opportunity we have. And I'm going to be honest with you. Of all the times I've asked this, I've never had anybody answer this question right, so I'm setting you up here. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
all right. So I'll help you along since this is your show.
Should I screw it up on purpose?
Okay. Go ahead. Screw it up on purpose. Well, you know what? Give me the answer you think most agents answer with.
Okay.
So
Okay.
as a business owner, what is your product? Or as I normally ask the question, as a realtor, what is your product? What is your product? What is it that you produce? A pie shop makes pies. A dry cleaner makes, dry cleaning. What is your product as a real estate practitioner, considering you don't actually make anything?
Service.
Nope. Try again. Service? Really?
Service. You're offering a service like an insurance.
No, that's not your product, Pat. That's what you do.
Okay, well, I could say a house, but I don't own the house, so it's not like
you don't make the house, right?
Right.
I mean, your product is profit. As a real estate practitioner, your product is profit. The money you make is your product. Honestly, in this business, that's it. And if you don't have any product, you're not in business. You're running a non-profit because you're just passing money through. And that's what most agents do. When we have, and this is happening at an alarming frequency, I have to say, or as far as the number of top producing agents that after the recession had their butts kicked and are now realizing that they should have been, if you ask any top producing agent, what do you wish you would have done more of during the boom? They all would have said the same thing. I'll say the same thing. Save more money. Cut my expenses. Right?
Yeah. There's a bumper sticker that says, Lord, please let there be another real estate boom, and this time I'll listen and save money.
Yes.
Something like that.
Okay, there you go.
I won't blow it. This time I won't blow it. That's what
I haven't seen that. Yeah, but I mean, that's it, though. That's the answer. When you ask any realtor who is making what they perceive, and it's differing from, people, person to person, what will you do differently if there's another real estate bubble, which there won't be, by the way, but what will you do? And the answer is always, I would have saved more money. I wouldn't have gone in debt. I would have done things so that I had options. In other words, I would have focused more on profit and less on being ludicrous.
Right. Okay, so let's go right to there. So ludicrous. So forget about the ego involved. Forget about having your name on a billboard. Forget about having a ton of assistants running around. What you are saying in layman's terms is, as a real estate coach, you would recommend to an agent, if they wanted to be most profitable, to do what?
Well, so here's the thought for you. This opinion that I have, it's an opinion, I suppose, but it's based on historical fact. Teams and team building and adding staff and all of that, we're the only coaching company, and I don't mean to be self-serving, but this is just a fact, and we're the only coaching company that I'm aware of that is agent-centric. Every single other coaching company that I'm aware of, including the one that you're associated with, Pat, through Keller Williams, they're not agent-centric. They're broker-centric. They're what's best for the hive. They're what's best for the broker. They're what's best for the brand. And that's fine. But my philosophy is, and our philosophy, all of our coaches' philosophy is very simple. If you make a stronger agent, okay, if you make a really, really smart, powerful agent, you're not going to create a bunch of small independent, brokerages, which is the fear that the big brokerage model has, that these guys are going to become successful and spin off. You're going to create, a healthy housing market, right? Because at a very macro level, you're dealing with an agent who's got the skills to get problems solved for folks, and then it makes for a more loyal customer, and it makes for a better local housing market. But then you're also going to have, a healthier financial agent. An agent's going to have money. Agent's going to be financially sound. And then, as a result, you're going to have a healthier brokerage. The body shop model, Pat, that is going on in this industry, and it's been going on forever, is insane. It's unhealthy. I think it's evil, if you want to know the truth. I'm sure you've heard that body shop term before.
So what? So explain for the listeners, what is a body shop model?
Well, so this is interesting. This is true for outside of our industry too. I mean, the average business fails in 24 months, something like that.
Right.
So a business owner starts and then they're out in 24 months.
So you mean the average realtor fails in 24 months?
Right. And so what is you walk into any brokerage in the country right now, what is the emphasis? It's, okay, welcome, get your real estate license as quick as you can, and then write down all the people your friends, family, whatnot. A handful of those people do business with you, and we know within 24 months there's a high probability that you're going to fail because you'll have soaked up the potential business from those who you know, and then you'll be gone. And so then we're just going to replace you with another body. That's the body shop. And, Pat, that is how this industry works. And if you want to know why they hate us, the public, for the most part, hates us, the reason that we're constantly at the bottom of every single poll of most to least respected profession It's because of that. There's no emphasis put on agent training. There's no emphasis on put on making for a really stellar agent. The people that have historically gotten into this business, for the most part, they're people that had hopes, had dreams, and had been given direction, and had been treated, frankly, in a lot of ways with, I don't know, the word respect comes to my mind, but the idea that you're not just going to be failed in 24 months, we're going to make a long-term investment in you. Our industry would be completely different. The perception of our industry would be completely different.
Okay, so let's take this. So you're obviously an advocate for being a single agent, not having a large team.
I wouldn't say single agent. I would say I'm an advocate for agents who are building their business around profit. I'm an advocate for agents who are not building their businesses based on wanting to be famous and ego. By the way, guys, you will get that as you become more successful. As you sell more houses, you will become famous because the neighbors, the sellers, the owners, they'll know who you are without you having to say you're famous. A little personal branding is fine. I'm not, on for sale signs and whatnot, that makes sense. But I'm seeing these really insidious trends start again where people are starting to talk about personal brands. And Pat, because you've been around, longer than me slightly, but the gist of it is you're going to start seeing all these fancy-ass personal brochures and all this. It makes it look like realtors are running for president type ads. Those are starting again. I'm starting to see advertisement for selling that type of product again. And agents who don't know better are going to say, well, in order for me to be successful, I have to be a personal brand. No, you don't. That's nuts. So to answer your question, yes, you should have. You should always add an assistant. Basically, when you've had a consistent, Julie and I say, 3 months of selling whatever it is required for you to meet your goal. So if you want to sell 50 houses, you have to have sold and closed, 4 houses a month for 3 months, and then you add your first assistant.
Right. Let's stop there because probably 3 to 4 houses a month is where you're going to reach your maximum amount of time it's going to take to do that without your head popping off. So let's just say 4 houses a month, 3 months in a row, hire your first assistant. Who is that? What does that person look like?
Well, I mean, anyone listening to your show right now knows this sort of repertoire. It's basically an admin first, and then basically after that you're going to want to hire someone who's going to essentially make it so that you can be more efficient at your listing appointments. Your principal function in life.
Staff people. 2 staff people.
Yeah, staff people. Maybe a third after that as a runner, and that's basically all the team you need. Notice I didn't say buyer's agents. Now, if you're depending on your price range, because general advice is generally worthless, but depending on your price range, you might be able to make financial sense of having buyer agents. But for the most part, buyer agents are not something that any agent should be considering adding because you don't make any profit from it. You'll almost always, in every market in the United States, considering the average sale price is less than $200,000, you'll almost always be better off referring out your buyer agents to other agents that are basically flying the buyer agent flag and have no hopes of ever becoming listing agents. Find 3 or 4 or 5 of those in your marketplace and then refer those out for a 35% referral fee. They'll gladly take them. They'll do a stellar job, probably a lot better than any agent that would ever work for you, frankly. And you'll make more money, and you don't have to focus on trying to build your staff and train buyer agents and buyer agent accountability and what happened to this lead and that lead. That's just a big old waste of time.
Yeah, okay. So let's stop right here. So what Tim is saying is, if you didn't hear it, let me just clarify it. He said, as you're growing the 4 units, hire your first person. Make it an executive assistant that can spit nails, somebody who could be your right-hand person 9 to 5. Then hire a second person who could do a similar sort of thing, and then a courier, whether part-time or full-time. And at that point, stop. Because if you continue to grow, your profit margin is going to dissipate. He says then you take buyer leads, and instead of keeping them in-house on your team to get the Realtor of the Year award and to get the ego up on stage and all that stuff, he said,
Pat, hold
stop.
on. Let me just jump in there. You and I have both done that. Okay, so let's not make fun of the people now that are motivated by that.
Yeah, I'm not. It's just a different way to think, and I'm just trying to clarify for everybody. So you stop at 3. So how many units do you think this 4-person team can do?
Well, hundreds, of course.
Okay, hundreds. So you have this 4-person team, and then every deal you're giving out 35%, which is a nice referral fee. Now, What is the profit margin, do you think, if you have 10 buyer agents and you're giving them to all the buyer agents? Do you think you'll be able to make more than 35%?
Well, I mean, again, that's where we go into a boring area of the conversation. People could do their own math, right? I mean, you can do your own math but you have to really kind of know what the heck you're doing, because you're going to have to figure out your cost per buyer lead. You're going to have to figure out like a lot of agents.
And the accountability, yeah.
Well, honestly, Pat, that's really where the failing in the whole, I think it's kind of an antiquated team model. And the whole team model, guys, I kind of laugh because we're having people join us as coaching students who think the team model is new. I mean, Pat, what do you think? It's been around for 30 years?
I would say 20.
Yeah.
Maybe 25, probably. So here's the thing. I hear it in the voices in the people's heads already. Okay, they can agree with you logically. If you get a 35% referral fee, it is probably financially better off, because we probably would not make that on a buyer agent once you add in having to keep them accountable and buying leads for them and all the money that we put into leads. The fear is not necessarily a logical dollar savings. It's more like, oh, but if I give this person my buyer, then they sell them a house, then it becomes their buyer forever and ever and ever, and they're going to follow up and list the house when they go to sell it. And you know what I mean? It's this big loss to them. So how do you address that?
Well, who cares? Get another one, honestly. I mean, there's always going to be more listings to go after, and don't worry about the buyers. Now, I probably would keep, and I do counsel and coach our agents to keep the move-up leg buyers if they're local, right? So if there's a buyer that's moving up and you have their house for sale, then you might want to keep that one for yourself. We always tell all of our students, even when they're making millions of dollars a year, you've got to have at least 3 AAA buyers in your pocket at all times, because it keeps you frosty. You know, that's something the Marines say, you know, when they're in the front line, stay frosty. In other words, stay alert. You got to know what's going on in the marketplace.
Now that's a pearl.
You have to know, yeah. So, you know, no matter how successful you are, but yeah, that's basically the gist of it. And so you lose control of the buyer, hypothetically, but remember, I said, didn't I say, Mr. Hiban, that you refer those buyers out to agents who pride themselves in being great buyer's agents? In other words, they have no desire to ever be a listing agent. There's agents like that in every market, and you know what? They are brilliant at working with buyers. You know.
And it doesn't mean you can't get the address of the house they buy and send them a postcard every month if you want.
And I think the term is adopting them or readopt them. Or if you really wanted to be complicated, you could hypothetically have your TC close the transaction for the buyer's agent that you referred the deal out to, so that you can maintain that relationship. So at closing, you're the one that goes to the closing. I mean, honestly, that's truly a minor point, because that question is operating off the assumption that the buyer agent's going to keep in contact with them after they purchase a house. And I can tell you right now that probably won't be true. That for the most part, agents are terrible at keeping in contact with their centers of influence and past clients. So 2 years after closing, 7 years after closing, that seller is not going to remember who sold them the house.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I mean, but Pat, again, that's the question, I really appreciate you asking. Again, no one ever asked that type of question publicly, right? But here's the other question: if I refer out all my buyer's agents, I'm not going to get credit for them, and then I'm not going to be the number one agent, or I'm not going to be able to go on stage and say I sold 6 trillion houses. Okay, if you're operating out of that mindset, you're not focusing on what matters, which is profit, which is taking as much money, and I'm talking 50% of every transaction, 50% plus, depending on, you know, again, what your units are, as profit, not the meager 20 or 22 or 25% that most big team rainmakers before tax make. I'm talking about making it so that you make fistfuls of cash from every transaction, and then you reinvest that money. Guys, you don't get rich selling houses. I don't know anyone that's gotten rich selling houses. You get rich with the money. Pat's rich. I'm rich. You know, you get rich from the money you make from selling houses. In other words, how you reinvest it, how you treat it.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's tap into that. What are you investing in right now?
All kinds of different things. I mean, Julie, small businesses. We're doing some, I guess the higher risk stuff would be we're doing some angel investing. We, of course, love single-family houses, stocks, all kinds of things. We're very diversified. You know, collector cars, I've done really well on antique Porsches. all kinds of different things. You have to really diversify it in a really questionable economics. Who the heck knows what's going to happen with inflation? I'll tell you though,
yes.
I'm close with several guys who I assume are billionaires, and they are pretty much trying to get themselves out of anything that's going to be a cash type investment, and they have been ever since the QEs started. I mean, again, this is going to be a boring conversation for most people.
What do you mean out of cash? You mean they're leveraging themselves?
Well, look at Wall Street and houses, dude. Look at Wall Street and houses over the past 36 months, arguably the past 24 months. They're getting into hard assets. The reason that Wall Street is making these investments into real estate is because they're anticipating inflation. And when inflation happens, all hard assets increase in value until you're at the tipping point, and then they start to depreciate because nobody wants them. But in the short run, when inflation kicks in, which it inevitably will, then you're going to have a situation where real estate on paper is going to go up immensely. And that's one of the plays that these investors are making. Their original claim when they were raising money to start buying properties was, we're buying them for the cash flow. Well, as the houses got too expensive, then they changed their tune to saying, we're buying them for the upside as inflation kicks in. Real estate goes in a 7-year cycle, and I'm not perfect, but this is just the understanding of it. So you have 7 years of basically what will be an ever-improving market, and then it has a tendency to level off. Now, that leveling off can last decades, or it can last, no time at all, or there can be a crash like we just experienced. It's obvious to me that we're in the very beginning stages, and it started, sometime last year. Again, you have to know your market to really know where you're at with this, but for the most part, we are at the beginning stages of a 7-year corrective cycle off what will have been historically remembered as the housing bottom in late 2013.
So wait a minute. So you're saying instead of the 7 years beginning in 2008, you're saying it's beginning now?
No. It's beginning now. Yeah. So 2000.
Well, how did it skip 5 years?
Well, it's because I didn't explain what I was trying to say very well. That's why. Because the down leg. So we had 7 years of crap market that started in 2007. Okay, and then it ended around 2013, early 2014. Remember, 7 years up, 7 years down.
Yep.
It's like a roller coaster.
Yep.
And so now we're starting to experience the up part. Now, where did I get that? Because I read constantly, and the guys in Wall Street who have studied this stuff, the guys that went to Harvard Business School have studied this stuff and written along, and now.
Okay, so you say for the next 7 years, our market is going to be similar or better than last year. Because I've talked to a lot of agents who 2013 was their best year ever, and they've been in business 20 years.
No, I didn't say that. See, that's you putting your realtor hat on again, which I respect because we're speaking with realtors right now. What I said is the market's going to be on an up leg, so there's going to be more. Essentially, it's going to be improving depending on your market. I remember when Julie and I sold real estate in Columbus, Ohio. There were markets like Clintonville and certain parts of Worthington, certain parts of every community that always did really well, and then there was other areas that for some reason never appreciated. They just have been flat forever. Just on a side note, guys, know the difference between appreciation and inflation. A lot of times agents say, well, my market appreciates every year by 3%. Like that's what Columbus always was, and that's what agents always in Columbus said. What's the inflation rate? 3%. Your house, the properties don't appreciate. They're just keeping up with inflation. So there's no doubt in my mind that we're at the beginning of what will be a 7-year cycle of improving markets. Will it result in a bubble? No. Pat, when you started selling real estate, okay, you started in what year?
I started in 1987.
Okay, so in 87, there was some mini run-ups, but for the most part, it was a very consistent market, would you say? Would you agree?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so the weird bubble that happened was something that was totally and completely historically, there was no precedent for it. That was something that was created by the Fed and low interest rates and easy monetary policy and all kinds of wishy-washy regulation over the mortgage industry.
So you say we're maybe going into like a 92 to 99 or say,
exactly.
Let's say something like that.
Right, that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Which was a good market. You could make money in that market, but it was the same. It was the same year in, year out.
Yep.
It was the same.
It was work. Nothing came to you on a silver platter. Nothing. It was work.
So is that what you're saying is lies ahead?
Absolutely. That's absolutely what we're experiencing
because
now.
It seems like last year a lot of agents, they had it easy. I mean, houses were, multiple offers. Houses were selling fast. That sort of a huge investor market. Investors were beating each other up for houses.
Pat, let's look at this. Let's look at the insanity that's happening right now in housing. Okay, this is something that, I had different people ask me my opinion on this, and I have to honestly say I got no freaking clue what's going on. In the country right now, there's 9.3 million owners that are still underwater. Nobody talks about that. Now, people don't know how to put that in context. And the truth is you have to know your individual market. Like here in Austin, Texas, the number of underwater owners is very small. But if you go to Las Vegas, Julie and I own some rental properties in Vegas, right? So you go to Vegas. It's something like, I don't have it in front of me, I should have better prepared, but something like 43% of all homeowners with a mortgage are still underwater, and they're still underwater by something like 18 or 20%. Now, I do remember this number. And in spite of all of what I just told you, homes year over year in Las Vegas appreciated by near 30%, 26%. Number one city in the nation for appreciation, like number one city in the nation for underwater owners. How the hell can both of those things exist in the same market? And Vegas is a small market, relatively speaking. How can both of those exist at the same time? That phenomena is happening in all these markets where agents think it's hit bottom and we're on a recovery. Look at the stats for the notice defaults of people in Manhattan. There is an alarming number of people that are underwater in Manhattan, the wealthiest area for selling real estate outside of maybe some of our coaching clients' markets in Beverly Hills and whatnot. And despite of all that, despite the fact that there's all these multi-million-dollar transactions happening every day, the number of underwater owners is staggering. So we still have this massive overhang from the bubble. And those people, here's the thing that's also kind of scary. When you hear the stats about underwater owners, it's not reporting on underwater seconds. It's only reporting on underwater firsts. So all these reports that come out, even the one I said, 9.3 million owners are still underwater. That is on the first, not on the second. And if you've ever sold real estate before in a normal market like Julie and I did, they're almost never underwater on the first. It's always on the second that's going to basically make it so you have to, figure out something creative to do to get that house sold. So these are all the types of things that nobody's talking about because our industry only knows how to promote sunshine and spring flowers. We only know how to promote the house, the market's appreciating, and let's all jump on board and rah, rah, rah. Nobody's telling the truth. Again, getting back to the whole agent-centric thing. We're agent-centric. I'm going to, sorry for being on a rant, but we're going to tell you things that you don't want to hear so you can freaking prepare yourself and you can prepare your market. Prepare yourself and prepare your market. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst. There is, without a doubt, Pat, and you just said it, there's a shift happening in the marketplace right now, and there are probably 4 distinct, really kind of scary headwinds that are going on right now. Again, that nobody's telling agents, no brokers, no.
Okay, wait a minute. So headwinds are a positive thing, right? You're in
you
your boat.
You live in Maryland, right? You live in Maryland. Do you sail?
No.
Okay. You have friends that you ever seen a sailboat?
I understand. Yes. I know it works through wind.
Right, but a headwind is going to prevent you from going in the direction that you want to go. You want a tailwind.
The headwind is blowing against you.
Right.
And a tailwind pushes you.
Right.
Okay, so the headwinds, name 3 of them.
Well, I wrote them down. I'll just go through them real quick. Rates are on the rise. Oh, I just thought of another one, too. Rates are on the rise. There's no doubt. I'll tell you one that no one cares or is reporting on, and this is really kind of scary. HAFA has expired. Home affordability, that's expired. So in other words, all these people that were in loan mods that gave them a temporary lower interest rate, again, a lot of agents don't know this, very rarely was the negative equity taken off the loan. And the interest rate deduction, typically to 2 or something percent, was only temporary. Most of those HAFA loan mods are adjusting now to a higher rate at 4.5% to 5%. Okay. In other words, the owners aren't going to be able to afford the adjusted payment. HAFA has expired, and they're still underwater. No, that's actually kind of 1. Well, yeah, 2. The rising rates and the expiration.
Rates are going up. HAFA's expired, so people's internal rates are going to go up. And what's the third one?
Okay, so then you have mortgage applications. This one really, I have to be honest with you. This one startled me. I was not expecting this. and I always do my best to prepare our coaching students, and I always pay attention to what the Mortgage Bankers Association is reporting. They're a front runner of what's going to happen housing, because generally speaking, people are going to apply for mortgages before they go searching for a house. Ideally, I laugh knowing that most buyers don't know that they have to do that, but let's assume that that is a good way of knowing what's happening next for us. The mortgage applications for purchasing used homes plummeted lower, something like 17% month over month, lower than even after September 11th. Now that kind of scares the hell out of me, to be honest with you.
Mortgage applications have plummeted to
the lowest
numbers.
Point, the lowest, but I have another stat after this. Yes, they've dropped after September 11th. I don't remember the number, but let's say by 10% month over month.
No one was buying. For
how
that
long? Was not during a housing boom either.
So what are they saying? Are you saying the month after September 11th or the 90 days after September 11th or what?
Basically, the reporting that happened, the Mortgage Bankers Association report that came after September 11th, had less of a decrease in new mortgage applications than what we've experienced in the past, say, I don't know how far, say 60 days. There's
okay,
been
so why? What happened? I mean, there certainly wasn't another terrorist attack, so.
Well, why has there been a huge drop-off in buyers? I mean, the CEO of Redfin came out and said basically there was a huge spike going into, Redfin's a brokerage, guys, mostly on the West Coast, mostly in the, Pacific Northwest. Great company, by the way. So Redfin said last year this time there was an enormous spike in buyer activity on their website, and this year there has not been an enormous spike. And he said, if anything, it's basically, you can watch this interview. It was on CNBC last week. And I also touched on the other thing, the fact that there's at least, 10 million underwater owners. Between the first and the second, it's probably more like, I've heard the statistic that's more like 20 million underwater owners. So all of these types of things are leading me to believe that the market that we're coming out of, where we've been experiencing this really kind of lush seller's market where things have been selling quick, what was that fueled by? It was fueled by pent-up demand for people that could sell because they had equity. It was fueled by investors. It was fueled by low interest rates. It was fueled by a lot of people being smart and opportunistic and buying off the bottom. Now that we're through all those types of buyers, where does that leave us? It leaves us with the facts that we were only kicking the problems from the housing bust down the road, and now they're all playing out. Now all those problems are there.
Some people are listening probably saying, well, Tim is contradicting himself. First he's saying that the next 7 years are going to be good, and now he makes it sound like it's going to be real tough.
I said it's a 7-year corrective cycle, and I said we're at the bottom, and now we're going to have – there's no doubt that the housing hit bottom last year, and now we're in the beginning stages of what will be a 7-year corrective cycle. We're at the bottom.
So even with these headwinds, we're still going to have a decent market.
Again, you'll have it'll be bifurcated. That's the term. It'll be bifurcated. There'll be two markets. There'll be two markets nationally. There'll be states and cities that do extremely well, for example, Austin, and then there'll be those that don't. It'll be bifurcated in agents' individual markets. They'll have communities in their markets that are doing terrible because there's still so many overhangs from the housing blow-up, and at the same time they'll have communities in their housing markets that are doing brilliantly. Get into the MLS, know your market. Every agent needs to be doing that literally on a daily basis, knowing what's selling, knowing if the days in the market are taking longer or shorter. Go and know what your notice defaults are. Actually get into, Zillow's got a really cool app that you can go on their search thing, put in your zip code, remove all the filters except pre-foreclosures, and actually look to see how many notice defaults there are in your community. We do that with coaching clients that are saying, oh, there's no more defaulted owners. Oh, yeah, let's go do that right now on a coaching call, and they're going, holy crap, my neighbor's in default. That happens all the time.
Okay. So let's talk about the do not call list, because I know that a lot of agents we talk to have started cold calling again. They've started warm calling. They got afraid for a while, and now it seems to have popped back. There's a lot of services out there where agents could call, and if someone's on the do not call list, well, they don't really care about that. They just it's become a non-issue. So what are you advising your clients with regards to cold calling, warm calling, that sort of thing?
The do not call list is very clear, and last week California Association of Realtors issued kind of what I saw as a dire warning to all their members, and they're the biggest association in the country. They have the highest, most agents are in California. Everybody knows that. And they said basically the do not call list is relevant to agents. The robocalling that a lot of agents have started doing, you will get in trouble for that. We are warning you not to do it. And agents basically, they've been sloppy with respecting the do not call law. There's lots of jokes made about it. How can there be, people don't know that they put themselves on the do not call registry. There's no one's getting fined in our industry. All these types of conversations that are happening amongst agents.
Yes.
And you guys got to really, honestly, you have to be thinking again of yourselves as business owners. And as a business owner, you have to really be thinking about whether or not I want to be taking a risk to face tens of thousands of dollars in fine per call, per violation. It's very simple. Understand the laws. Like, for example, a lot of agents think that they can call an expired seller. Well, you can call an expired seller, and we'll teach you how to call expired sellers, except if it wasn't your expired and they're on the do not call list.
Well, wait a minute. Of course it wasn't your expired. It's somebody else's expired.
Right. That's right. But I'm clarifying, right? So
So basically, yeah, and a lot of these services, Red X and that sort of thing, right? They will take out someone who's on the do not call list and not dial the number, correct?
But they won't scrub your center of influence and past client list. Those guys you're not able to call them forever. There's a time limitation for that. Don't ask me what it is. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So there's no software that will scrub your past client list.
Well, there is hypothetically. I'm sure there is. I'm sure there's services that, are provided, but are agents doing it?
No.
Our brokerages,
because I think their belief is that if they were a past client and they sold something to them in the past, that they could call them.
Forever. No, not the case. I think, Pat, it's 90 days. I think it's something like that. It's very limited as far as how long you can call somebody after you've done business with them.
Well, I guess the jury's not out because we don't have an example of when an agent's been nailed with a huge fine.
With all due respect, the jury's not out. There have been agents that have been fined for it. There have been brokerages that have been fined for it. Absolutely.
There have recently?
Absolutely. My information as far as the fines doesn't go very deep, and it's probably 2 or 3 years old. But we're talking about people that I knew were experiencing do not call issues. I'll give you a scenario, and this is something that I know because I had a coaching client experience this. There had been little sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, cottage industries that have been set up to catch people making calls to people on the do not call list. And a typical example was, this is what, an attorney basically who was on the do not call list, and supposedly he had like a dozen phone numbers set up in his house. All of them were on the do not call list, and he listed his property for sale by owner, and then essentially every time the phone rang with the realtor, he recorded the conversation. He then essentially called the broker and whatnot and said, I was on a do not call list, this was a clear violation, blah, 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 and, we have to settle code for pay up. So, okay, that was happening. Now, I'm sure those types of things are going to happen. Now, does that stuff get widely reported on? Of course not. And Pat, how would it be in the benefit of the industry on a whole for people really to know the truth about the do not call registry? So here's the bottom line. Understand the law. Don't violate it. Don't just blindly think you're a cowboy thinking you can just basically do whatever the heck you want to do to get a listing because, well, you can try, but, the ramifications are too dire.
Okay. So, and they could, obviously there's places they can go online and scrub their own lists or have somebody scrub it for them. So
right.
It shouldn't be too hard to stay in the safe zone there.
Well, even Zillow and Trulia and Realtor.com and all these companies that tell American agents, they're coming under attack right now for violating the do not call list. There's lawsuits that are being filed against, I think it's someone's either put together or trying to put together a class action lawsuit against one of the big syndicators, basically going after them for the fact that they were, basically prospecting agents who are on the do not call list on their cell phones, if I remember correctly.
Oh, you mean prospecting agents. So they would call up the agent and say, hey, would you like to buy some advertising? And the agent says, how'd you get my number? I'm on the do not call list. And then
you got it.
Since that cold caller from Zillow, that's interesting. Well, that's kind of interesting reversal there. Well, listen, Tim, this has been a great conversation. There's a ton of meat and potatoes in here, and I think our listeners are going to get a ton out of this. I really appreciate you spending the time with me today, and I'm sure I'm going to look you up next time I'm in Austin, and we'll go out and break some bread together.
like we did last time you were in California.
That's
yeah,
right.
and if they need to get hold of me, the easiest thing they can do is go to freecoachingcalls, plural, for agents.com. Freecoachingcallsforagents.com. And all of our coaches, we take 5 coaches and we put them in the sort of the spinner, and they provide free coaching calls every single week. I'm occasionally in there. Julie's occasionally in there. So you can actually schedule a free coaching call possibly with Julie or myself or one of our other coaches. But really, the bottom line, Pat, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, especially in 2014, really probably for the next few years. Expect the unexpected and accept the fact that what's worked in the past, it's like Ronald Reagan always used to say, trust but verify. Don't
Indeed.
assume it'll work just because it did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very sage advice from Mr. Tim Harris. Thank you, Tim.
My pleasure.
You're listening to billion-dollar real estate agent, Mr. Pat Hiban, interviewing today's real estate rock stars. Don't forget to buy Pat's international New York Times bestseller, 6 Steps to 7 Figures, a real estate professional's guide to building wealth and creating your destiny. Sold on Amazon.com.